doctor and they do blood work, and there you go with that. That's that over there. But what happened for me, that wasn't working. They didn't get it. They didn't know. They couldn't figure it out. And I kept getting worse to the point where my inflammation levels went so far through the roof, they couldn't measure them anymore. And how did I get from there to really shifting? Long story is really short. The angel lady said, you've got to find somebody that administers T3. Well, I found Dr. Darvish. I didn't have a thyroid problem, but the journey that we went on together, Dr. Darvish, the show, the direction, talking with people from all walks of life on the mental, the spiritual, the physical, the mind, right? The mental mind, but also the emotional body. And off I went to understand. But here's what I want to say, as Matthew's going to take the wheel here for a minute. I didn't have to explain to my naturopath why I couldn't get enough of juniper. Why I couldn't get enough of juniper. Now, Dr. Darvish is smart enough to know, great, but your body's either going to handle it or not. And then the journey began. I'm not an herbalist. I don't claim to be. I don't practice herbal medicine, but Matthew does. And that's why it's important to have him here. Because if you go beyond the conversation of herbal medicine, and then you talk with him about the extracellular matrix, you ready? The science. You're going to find out today the underpinnings of what my journey was like to go through it without any knowledge, but I followed directions very, very well. Matthew is joining me here today. He's the author of many books. The book that we're referring to today, for those of you that are just tuned in, is Holistic Medicine, the Extracellular Matrix, the Science of Healing at the cellular level, because what I learned is, I didn't learn this, but what I left the question with, is it really healing if you are not healing at the cellular level? Yeah. It's great to have you. Welcome back.
Great introduction there. Yeah. And you were saying you felt like you were muddling through without direction or understanding, good at following direction. It sounds like you did have your body knew, like juniper. Yeah. So that's really important. Animals have that quality, and we do if we don't override it. Yeah. But I would say the strange thing about the matrix, the whole thing about the matrix, is that I kind of felt without direction until I understood it. It's the basic foundation of physiology, and it's kind of like the whole physiological structure was just floating in the air with no ground, with no substance. And in fact, the substance of the matrix is called the ground substance.
That perfectly describes my journey. But I was at a point though, and how many times have you heard this? So let's talk about this, because this is the point that so many people right now are at. We're not even talking about this right now, but what's happening is you go through and you get a pill, potion, or lotion, and you do due diligence. You're taking it. You're like, but you're not feeling any better, right? Maybe you feel a little bit better, or maybe you're getting something that's going to numb you for a little while so you feel better. But at the root of who you are, you're not feeling better. And it's such an important message to help educate people that there's an option.
Yeah.
There's an option that will heal at the cellular level. I want to ask you this question.
Yeah. That question you just.
I want to ask you this one.
Yeah.
You have many people you've worked with. You have so many stories.
Yeah.
You've seen this in action.
Yeah.
What's the power? What is the power that we achieve when we heal at the extracellular matrix level?
Well, I would say it's like total healing if you really hit the nail on the head. And part of that is like there's kind of two basic ways, or maybe two or three, not including energy medicine. I won't get into that, but food, herbs, etc. So food and exercise is like number one. You just have to, and exercise moves all that, the fluid in the matrix. And it's interesting, like that you are attracted to these ideas because I think juniper is a diuretic, quote unquote, but it like moves the fluids all through the whole body, that whole family, the cypresses and the cedars. Because I've been taking, it's just a coincidence, I've been having this like waking up with fluid in my head and my ears, and then having to sniffle it out for half an hour, and so I just happened to be out in the woods with a friend here nearby. I'm in California right now, and I was chewing on some cypress, and which is native in that pygmy forest, they call it. And it's like, wow, did that the next morning I woke up, whoa, was I cleaned out.
Yeah.
And then I've taken that some since then. So it's funny, and it's not a remedy I use a lot. So we have something in common there.
Yeah. And it's interesting because it wasn't the only thing. And this is what I love about your book and the way you walk us through this
Yeah.
is your body knows. And here's the thing I learned, and maybe you can help us out with this. I have a couple of friends that really went down this pathway similar to me.
Yeah.
But they didn't understand that if your body is not well and you go down this pathway, there are things that are going to get killed off. Dr. Darvish said that's a Hertz reaction. So what I've come to know about it is we're getting rid of the bad stuff, but we've got to move it out. And a lot of people don't follow this through. Now, I got to tell you, for me, this was a life and death situation. This was not going to be, I think it feels uncomfortable. But boy, the body really does change and rejuvenate, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah. So one thing about the matrix that's so helpful is this in, mix, out. The stuff comes in, mix is really metabolism. It gets used, and then it gets eliminated. And you're right. If you're going to get well, you have to eliminate. It's like Hippocrates, they had their healing fast. All they didn't know a lot, so they just had a good fast, a week of just eating, just a tabbouleh salad or something.
Yeah.
Salad. So, and then they detoxify, and if they were constipated, they would give a laxative. It was just that important. So sometimes you sweat, like with a fever, when you break a fever, you sweat. The body always eliminates. And so we do have to pay attention to that to make sure that's going on. And I couldn't help one case with that extra fluid. I think, I'd had COVID and stuff. So I was like, there was just some kind of damage from it, and I had to dry myself out. It was kind of squeeze the sponge.
Yeah. I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's actually what I alluded to at the beginning of the show, Matthew. One of the things I alluded to is, we're all excited about not wearing masks and the state of Washington. I mean, it's all that. But we are really not talking about the ripple effect from people that have been hit with this.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I had something similar that was really long term.
Yeah.
And had decades to really formulate. And, for me, my immune system was able to hold it back, so to speak, until my immune system was not anymore. And then, so the message today for us and for you and for us to tell people out there is that you can do some things now. Just because you had COVID and you don't have it at the moment doesn't mean you don't have to repair. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, well, that's true of many diseases, but COVID is so insidious. And it took me like a year to realize, because I had it right at the start. So I was traveling as a teacher, and I actually wanted to get it. I was like, this sounds interesting. And I had to be in 10 airports that month. So it's like, okay, I'll see. But I mean, it was, 3.5 months of sometimes a little scary, but then exhaustion for the next month afterwards, which I've talked to a lot of people, they have that. And then I felt pretty good, but a year later I began to realize, oh, wait a second, I have I have more fluids in my head
Yeah.
now than I ever had before. And I'm getting constipated for the first time in my life. I mean, one of my friends said, when I shared this on another interview, overshare. And I had to deal with that. That's poor elimination, and that's going to affect you. So that's the out, in, mix, out. Yeah, and I do want to just emphasize that as this totally simplest. As you know, you read the book, and finally, when we got to just about the final chapter, it was kind of these medical geniuses, kind of weirdos. Marguerite Maury, I may not be pronouncing it right, in France, who rejuvenated aromatherapy, and Corwin Samuel West in Salt Lake City, who they just figured this out even without a name for it yet.
Yeah.
They just knew in, mix, out, and they didn't come up with that name. That was somebody else, but they kind of put it all together. But so if you're sick, you cut down on protein. Usually, sometimes you got to feed the fever, but cut down on protein. One of my readers, people keep on giving me great ideas, and you did. You were the first one that kind of like, wow, those are great ideas. Like, I hadn't thought of any of that. And it's like, I thought, because this is so new, like Pissinger and Heine took, this is the matrix, this is the regulatory system. We understand it now. Let's write a technical book about it. Nobody can understand it. I took 6 years slowly, how to make this understandable. Then once it's understandable, yeah, then we can start working. But I took it to just that first platform, make it understandable. And I talked to, 200 herbalists one time on an interview, and they had like 200 ideas. It was incredible. And talking to you, you had several ideas. Well, one of them was just, this explains why we fast when we're sick, and cut down on that protein, because the protein is what's hard on the immune system. It's identity. It's like it's foreign identity, and especially anything you're allergic to. Just don't forget that while you're sick. And that was kind of the Hippocrates and those guys.
Yeah.
Just real simple. Yeah. So and this person added take some nettles, and I didn't put that in the book. It was like, what a great idea.
Yeah, nettles. Yeah.
Yeah.
But get some help when you take nettles. Nettles is the kind of let me just be really clear. I am a girl from the Bronx, New York. The fact that I'm even having a conversation with you on this shows many decades of progress in this area.
Yeah.
But I'm not really, I love to try things, and nettle is one of the interesting experiences. But I want to get back to something you said that is so important.
Yeah.
If I had a magic wand,
yeah,
and about $250 million.
yeah.
Well, if I had the wand, then I could have all of the money, right?
Yeah.
But if I had access to set up a foundation that would not only educate people on how to repair their system now, right, after 24 months, I would set up a foundation, and I would make practitioners available and treatments and all of the herbs and free for people that wanted to heal. And I said that to somebody the other day, and they said, why would you do that? So let's talk about the why for a minute.
Well, let's see. Like, first, I would say herbs are almost free.
Don't tell anybody that. I got like I just got it right out here. Like I've got trees here, so you're right.
Well, actually, probably, I'm on the West Coast right now, so what I was taking was very akin to what you're taking, I'm sure. Yeah. I can't remember now what. Let's see. So why would we set up a foundation?
Well, the reason that this was such a really interesting question to me. I mean, people look at me and say, "Really, Pat, you're going to do more? You're expanding the network, blah blah blah." I'm like, I don't even live in your brain. This is not doing more. Like, I'm on my life's path.
Yes.
Why would we do it? Here's why. Because I almost died.
Yeah.
That's why we would do it. Yeah. And literally took every test, right, Matthew, under the sun. Yeah. And they were so sure I had AIDS, and I was so sure I didn't, right? I'm like, I don't have AIDS. Well, tell us what your sexual, no, it's not there. Stop asking. But I went through these great tests. I had a near-death experience. I went
Yeah.
through these great tests. But here's the thing I know. That kept me alive long enough to heal through these other modalities. See, we've got to get this into the mainstream.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the thing is that medicine's becoming more and more just computer based. Like, I mean, I think they're going to have us go to robots in 10 years, not to doctors anymore. Because, stick your hand in, get the, boom, get blood sample. Well, okay, maybe we need an assistant to give us the cup to urinate in or something, and then give it back to whatever but basically, MRI, lay down, boom, machine. Yeah, maybe we need an attendant, but to interpret all these things, it's just a computer program, and that does not get to the basis of what's going on in a person, and that's what alternative medicine does, and that's what we have to do.
Yeah.
We have to understand. First, we got to talk. Sometimes you just talk and you just talk to people, to a practitioner, and something slips out. Oh, that's important. And many times I know I'll talk for an hour, and at the last 5 minutes, the thing comes out. I call it the tag. It's sometimes it's something they don't want to talk about, but often enough it's just something they don't think of. But somehow,
right,
the energy of the healer coaxes it out, and so our healing is totally different. It's not based on those tests. It's based on well, I like to look at the tongue, the pulse, like a Chinese practitioner, facial diagnosis, but talking to the person. What are the patterns, holistic pattern? And that is the importance of the matrix. The matrix proves holism, the basic tenet of holism. The whole body acts as one response, a stimulation, a needle stuck in. Every cell feels it, because the ground regulatory system on that level ties them all together. And you're so right. You have to heal on the cellular level. And why is that? Because all the cells are all in communication. And maybe a few of them can be off in one corner, but basically,
they're watching movies.
Yeah, right.
Hey, let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about 4 different things that Matthew said. One, we're going to talk about what is it about exercise vibrationally? What are we moving? And what does that mean? How do we get from whatever condition you're in to the condition you want to be in? 1-800-930-2819. Y'all want to call in? Give us a shout. Matthew, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to tell people all about you, all about the book. We're taking your questions. Send them over to Facebook. Send them to my messenger. I will get them on air. I already have a couple of questions. Yes, I didn't know this was a Q&A. Let's take a short break, Benny. We'll be right back.
All clear.
Want to ignite your best life full of joy, passion, and purpose? Then join me, Stephanie James, for The Spark, Wednesday nights, 6 o'clock Pacific Time, 9 o'clock Eastern, on TransformationTalkRadio.com, and learn how together we can illuminate the world. Learn more on stephaniejames.world. The best is yet to come.
Don't miss Colette Marie Steffen on The Truth is Funny, Shift Happens, every Wednesday at 8 a.m. Pacific on TransformationTalkRadio.com. Colette is a renowned energy worker here to help you see the serendipitous humor of the truth. It's funny. Tune in and laugh with Colette. Shift into your highest potential. Call into the show to work on your personal shift with Colette. And visit thetruthisfunny.com to learn more about all the life-shifting services Colette offers.
Hi, I'm Coach Martez.
And I'm licensed therapist with Drina Layton.
We want to invite you to join us on the Coach Martez and with Drina Layton show, where we discuss understanding love, accepting truth, and changing your perspectives.
Relationships are the currency to life, and so many couples find themselves broke in their relationships. We want you to join us for a lively discussion and practical tips and insights on how to turn things around and gain the Married for Life mindset.
Hey everybody, it's me, Psychic Medium Jamie.
And me, Spirit Walker Nicole. We are so excited to introduce you to our new live call-in show called Shades of Spirit on TransformationTalkRadio.com.
As we connect you with your crossed over loved ones, angels, and guides, and also help you develop your own psychic and healing abilities. For more information and to book your own private experience, go to shadesofspirit.com and also follow us on TransformationTalkRadio.com.
Are you ready to find out who you really are? Are you ready to have fun and listen to the soul part of yourself? Indulge in a deeper meaning with Laura Goldstein, host of Coffee with the Universe. This show will awaken that true self hidden deep within you and will get you energized on who you were created to be. So go ahead, grab your cup of joe and experience Coffee with the Universe with Laura Goldstein on TransformationTalkRadio.com.
And Pat, I've got to bring you back here. Stand by.
Hey, everybody. I'm so excited. I mean, my gosh. Benny, Linda, Jacob, Olivia, I mean, come on. We get to have a conversation with Matthew Wood. I mean, this is so surreal for me to be able to even be in a halfway intelligent conversation with somebody who has dedicated his entire life, pretty much. He's an author. He's a lecturer. He's also like eating trees today, but he's like me. We're both doing the same thing. But here we are, professional, right? American Herbalist Guide, the author of several books. Read them all. There's a couple I didn't even mention. And the way that you find out about Matthew and the way you get engaged and the way you get involved and the way you can learn, right, is to go to Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism. Matthew, did I get that right?
Yeah, right.
Okay, good. The book that I'm referring to, this is I've asked Matthew to come back because this book, Holistic Medicine and the Extracellular Matrix Part 2, it's so powerful and it's so in depth. And Matthew, I don't want our audience to have to take the 10 years that it took me.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sorry, it may take them 10 years, but we're not just talking about healing. We're talking about, okay, once I got better, I couldn't, you don't stop, right?
Oh.
Can you talk about how the extracellular and the cells, how they need to be brought to life? Because you said something that I discovered later on in my healing journey. And as a result, I have a little step thing, vibration. I learned, first of all, I just love it, but I didn't understand how powerful. So I have 3 things in my home now that will move things around. One of them is this really cool step thing that you can stand on and it just goes crazy. I love it. The other one is a chair, Soul Tech chair. It is my juniper
Yeah.
for my body.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is that too much sharing?
No, I understand totally. Yeah. So basically, yeah, the water, we have the blood circulating on that level, but the lymph, it takes, if we start a particle here, it takes 2.5 days to go around the body and come back to there. That's slow compared to half for the blood. So how does that even pump? The lymph doesn't have its own pump. The lungs, breathing, just that slow pumping and the body movements and the exercise is what moves the lymph. Well, the lymph drains the matrix. So we do have to breathe deeply and exercise. And it's just a simple, but actually vibrating like that, I can understand that totally. It just because that, gets all that fluid moving out, moving slowly. So yeah, that's cool. Those guys, Dr. West suggested the lymphosizer, the jumping up and down on the trampoline, and a friend of mine said horseback riding is the best exercise there, which is the same kind of thing. I have found, see, I like work, but I don't like exercise. So finally I found out that the only thing I really truly love to do for exercise is to split wood. Because
That's
the
great
abs,
though.
yeah, because you aim it, boom, and so you're both
Oh,
aiming and you're working, and you do get the cardiac after about 10 minutes. You start breathing a little heavier, so that's what you want too.
you also get vibrational impact from it.
Oh,
So
yeah, you're
you
right.
and I have that in common. So
Ah,
chopping wood, you
yeah.
and
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
my friends don't understand. Like when we go out and like everybody has a job, and I'm
Yeah,
like, I'm chopping wood. I'm the
yeah,
wood person. They're like,
yeah,
why? That is so hard. I
yeah.
says, I want to chop the wood. And but there's a vibrational impact to that as well. That's
That is,
brilliant.
yeah, we should do a little we could do a little thing on the virtue of chopping wood.
Oh my
I've never,
God, let's do a video.
yeah,
Let's do
yeah,
because you see what I think we're caught up in the middle of, and you do this so well. That's why I love talking with you.
yeah.
Is I I discovered somewhere, I don't remember if it was '05 or '06 with Dr. Darvish, that this is not complicated. It is if you're you, Matthew, and maybe if you're Dr. Darvish and you
Yeah.
have all these medical degrees and naturopaths and
Yeah.
certified, and China's bringing her over to be the ambassador for chronic Lyme. Maybe,
Oh,
but the simplicity of what we're talking about and the way you lay your book out is anybody can start, and they can start anywhere.
yeah,
Chop wood. You'll get three things, right?
yeah,
Breathing,
yep,
right? You'll get breathing. The mind will have to focus.
yep,
The muscles will get built,
yep,
every part of the muscles,
yep,
and you'll get the vibrational, right? I don't know
yeah.
about you. Maybe it's just the way I chop wood.
No, I think, yeah, I hadn't thought of it, but you are right. Yeah, and you would think, oh, it's just only upper body, but as you know, well, I've discovered it's lower body because partly because occasionally I'd sprain a kind of a weird, muscle down the inside of my leg or something. It's
Oh
like,
my God.
oh, I am getting, leg exercise here too. So
It
yeah,
is. I mean, but you see, anybody listening to this,
I don't think we're nuts.
they already know I'm nuts. Benny, right? They
Yeah,
already know. That's like a given.
yeah,
But you see, that's what my journey's been like. It's being able to say to people, this is not out of reach for you. It's not out of realm. Maybe you don't have the money to go buy a juniper essential oil, or, I get that oil going in the house, like in the diffuser, forget it.
oh, yeah.
Linda doesn't even want to come in the house. But what we're talking about and what you take us through is an understanding that will allow us to start,
Yeah,
right?
right.
That is so critical. And my heart is going out for so many people right now that I'm speaking with that have had COVID
Yeah.
and literally are having post-COVID symptoms that almost mimic chronic Lyme, brain fog, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I just want to
Yeah,
try to help them.
yeah. I actually, so I had Lyme 1 year. I got the little bit of rheumatoid arthritis there still to
Yep.
show, but I conquered it with herbs, but
Yep.
then I got Bartonella, which is horrible, which is, I would rather have almost any kind of COVID compared to
Yeah.
Bartonella, I have
I
to
had
say.
them all.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, then everybody, your person, Pat here could either be dead or raving, horrifying person, because Bartonella destroys your mind. It makes you
Yeah.
feel hatred
Yeah.
and anger that's beyond anything. And I just am dealing with a case where psychosis finally set in because he was a teenager, he stopped taking the herbs.
Mm.
But it's like, yeah, so I learned from that, like the back brain heats up with Bartonella, and that's the snake brain, and you become like that snake. And I felt this thing hates me. I felt my heart and my brain being attacked within a week of
Yeah.
being that little bite. And finally,
Mm.
after a while, I used Dr. Bach's holly, the holly flower essence, very simple thing, because that's for hatred. And that
Yeah.
helped. That I felt that I used a remedy. I don't want to go deep into the remedies, but a remedy to draw out heat, which was really pretty remarkable. I learned from Native Americans, actually. Well, I mentioned wild bergamot. So I put that on the back brain, and that just drew the heat out. And and on the mastoids in there where it gets trapped, the little bones are. And so then when COVID came along, first it would move through my brain and not get caught. And I actually, it would make me dream about it too. It did not do anything that I did not dream about. It just, yeah, it just would, it acted on that level. So it showed me how it moved through the brain, and it moved through the back brain and into the brainstem. You can't feel the brainstem, but I knew from the reaction that that's what was happening. It slowed down my breathing and heart rate for a little bit. But yeah, so you learn from these things. These are terrible things, and you learn from them. And I mean, if you've been through that, then I know, Pat, that you, yeah, lucky you're here. Yeah.
And the reason I know this, look, I'm one of these people. I really do believe that your life path, your destiny, and the things that you run into, challenges, whatever you want to call them, they show up because there's something on the other side that is really meaningful for you to do. But you cannot do that thing until you go through it.
Yeah.
I was very fortunate to live in the state of Washington when this was discovered, because we have some of the best. And this is part of what we're talking about with your book and what you're saying, and how to get knowledgeable and aware so that you can represent yourself at some point, or that the people around you could do it. We have to really get back to what you talk about in your book and what you say in your book about being able to have this organism, this first single cell organism, right? Wherever that was over there, like in the sea, I don't know where it was.
Yeah.
But to understand how it thrives, how it grows, right? The brain of the cell, how it talks to us, but we don't really listen, do we? I don't think we know how to listen.
Yeah, just so the cell in the sea was the beginning of life, they say. And Kissinger, who came up with these theories, he said, well, people say, well, what's the regulatory system of the cell in the sea? It's got to have its own brain. No, he said, the seawater is the regulatory system of the cell. And this is so true. We are regulated by the environment, and we're the smartest of all the animals. We can modify the environment, but we are still programmed by the environment. And so we really, we're programmed, and then it comes in, it's influencing our internal environment. So our internal environment is just that seawater taken inside, and that is the water of the matrix. And then we have kind of like sea slime in there, which sends these signals all over the place. And so, like, from an evolutionary model, you can understand how this whole system developed. And we still use the exact same mechanisms as the sea slime to, like, send signals and control our internal environment. It's like that external environment was so hard on that little cell in the water that a colony of cells enclosed themselves and in the slime and made a membrane and became an animal or plant and a life form, and kept that internal environment. So we're so high above that, and yet we have to learn that we have an internal environment. It's as important as the external environment, and we have to take care of it. and that bathes the cells and takes care of the cells.
Yeah. There's so much that we can learn, and there's so much that's important for us to learn. Let's talk about the pace by which we live in for a minute. And, let's talk for a minute about not only the pace by which we live, but how we tend to put ourselves on the bottom of the list now. Like in our daily day, like until you've gone through what you've gone through and what I've gone through and what so many people have gone through now, hopefully what we've learned is we cannot afford to put our self-care and our proactive care at the bottom of anybody's list.
Yeah.
That's why give me $250 million and I will do my best, at least to start here, and educate people how they can rejuvenate, how they can It doesn't matter what age you are. That whole age thing is just a crazy dialogue for me. It's crazy. Just look at Stevie Nicks. If you think that her age is stopping her from doing a concert, but yet we don't take the holistic approach, Matthew. What do we about? What are the consequences, if I might ask you?
Well, right. Well, first of all, you can't take good health for granted, can you? No. And when you're young, you think that way, but you got to start eating right, getting better and better. When you're young, you eat badly and you exercise chaotically, but most people do exercise some. But so you got to be aware and self-responsible. A lot of people just want a pill, we'll take care of you, but no, you got to take care of yourself. So first there's that. So then something's going on, maybe then you go to the doctor, you get that opinion, and they say get a second opinion, from another medical doctor. Well, get a second opinion from a holistic practitioner, or reading a book, or educating yourself. So you got to educate yourself. And I always say the getting well is also a matter of wandering in the wilderness. It's like you're thrown into a new state and you don't know. And it's like you probably were maybe you didn't believe in angels as much before you got sick. So what was that jump? It was like, wow, I have to have faith. I've got to jump. That's that wandering in the wilderness. Wow, I got led to the door of the angel lady, and and this is where my answers are. And like that takes giving up your prejudices.
Yeah.
And so I got to say, for the $250 million, the important thing is to make this stuff available and not illegal. And I would say, I don't like, super overregulation, but a little bit of regulation. Well, like the FDA has food quality or supplement quality. And there has been fraud in herbs that are not, Yeah. So,
but that's everything, Matthew. I mean, what we do is, what tends to happen is we have a movement like what you and I are talking about.
Yeah.
And we have this movement, and we are taking ancient remedies.
Yep.
Now, I'm just going to go out on a limb here, and then YouTube or Facebook, they may pull me for saying this, but I am Dr. Pat.
Yeah.
But here's the thing that I don't understand.
Yeah.
Had we not had those, I'm just going to call them ancient remedies, because there's so many. I mean, as far back as you go, people figured out if you eat that berry, you would die. And then somehow they passed that on. But if you grind that berry up and you put it on a cut, voila, somehow thousands of years of us hopping around here, up until what, 100 years? Up until then, those things kept us alive. I mean, would we have survived 5,000 years ago? Would we? I mean, we didn't have the Eternals to come down and say, oh, let me give you this knife, right? That's a movie. But how did we exist? How did we survive? How did we heal? How did we fill in the blank? Had it not been for the use of what was available to us?
Yeah.
I don't know how.
Well, I think that people followed what animals did. And they looked, and also they dreamed, and that was their television set, and they saw a bunch of facts during the day and they didn't understand them, and then at night the dreams maybe made them fit together a little bit more. So then they start using kind of folk medicine. They've shown that chimpanzee troops in Africa have about a dozen medicines, herbal medicines. Like, this is kind of normal for them. So that's the village, and our ancestors in their little troops and their little villages. Maybe there was 100 people, so there's maybe there's 13 remedies. But they had this basic knowledge, and the animals, the gorillas, everybody, and even the deer and everybody. There are a lot of different things. So we started with that, and then we got, magic got mixed in, and that's okay too, because magic sometimes heals, whether it's psychological or something real about it. And then finally, where medicine began to emerge, like some great thinkers began to think, how do we do this? And so ancient Egypt, ancient India, ancient China, we have the records. I don't want to overlook Native Americans and all cultures, in fact.
Yep.
Yeah, so Native Americans, oral tradition, but like the Cherokee had 700 basic herbs, and their doctors were really trained. And I ran into, in France, I met a guy who was trained as in an herbal guild in Africa, in the Cameroons. And, and it was just this basic, they talk about mild regulation, it was self-regulation. There were guilds, it was hereditary, but some people didn't want to do that, so they left the guild, and other people did want to do it, so they paid a fee or married somebody, and then they're in the guild. But it was very simple self-regulation. It was really kind of neat. And in France, he was a carpenter, but it was just your simple herbalism, and yet generations of knowledge tied up in that. So
I mean, it's all part of really, and I want to pull this all together, but it's all part of a level of understanding that you walk us through in your book. I want to just tell people, if you're just tuning in, I am speaking with Matthew Wood again. We are talking about not just the book, but, his life work, but holistic medicine and the extracellular matrix. Because when we start to look at the matrix and we have an understanding of how things work inside, it helps us, Matthew, to ask. It helps us to ask questions.
Yeah.
Short example. Have a friend gets treatment for autoimmune, gets like either rituximab or Remicade or whatever those IVs are, right?
Yeah.
So I'm reading an article that popped up, and she was getting ready to go in to get the vaccine. She was going to get, and I said, hey, take this article to your doctor, because this research study that came out is showing that because of the nature of the way the rituximab works, whatever that is, if you're down that path, that's your path. But the way that works, and COVID, and they offset each other. And she looked at me and she said, well, how do you know that's true? I said, well, there was a study done because they were trying to figure out why all these autoimmune patients were dying from COVID. And so the science shows these two things, when they interact, they neutralize each other.
Yeah.
And I said, look, I'm not a doctor in that way. I'm not a cellular microbiologist.
Yeah.
But if you look at the article, you'll get a level of knowledge so that you can ask the right questions. How important is it to ask good questions?
Yeah. And sometimes you have to find the right doctor who's interested in answering questions. And it's like a lot of doctors just, it's like become rote practitioners. And, and yet another bunch just love they're doing their life calling. So you bring them something new, and it's like, I remember a friend of mine, in fact, she's kind of small and thin like you, and she said, yeah, you could tell he was a good doctor because he said, wow, what are you doing? Like, it was an herb, actually. It said, oh, I gotta look that up. What's the name? And he was excited about it. And,
exactly. Exactly. We
Mhm.
have one of the hosts on our network, Dr. Sharon Martin. She's known as the straight talking shaman. She's a medical doctor. She's a shaman. And her platform's called Maximum Medicine. I'm going to have you on her show, but it's wonderful to see what she's created to help us understand, the elements of earth, how it interacts with our body parts. She's created this beautiful way to do that. But isn't it fascinating that ignorance sometimes is not bliss? We are now living in a world where part of that, I think 50 million out of the 250 will be to help people ask questions. So if I pull the 50 million out to educate people about how to ask the right questions.
Well, that's good. Yeah.
I want to ask you this in the short time we have left.
Yeah.
This is really exciting to be able to see what you're doing and how you're doing it. Yeah. And I just want to take a few minutes to just ask you, since you wrote the book, is there anything now that if you had the opportunity to do a rewrite or go back that you would add? Basically, what have you learned since that book, which probably took forever to write,
Yeah.
gave birth. You gave birth.
Well, I learned so many things. I've forgotten some of them. I think the very first thing was somebody said, well, this sounds like the mycelium in the forest floor, like, and immediately it was like, wow, we got to walk bare feet, on the ground more. And I actually did help myself by walking bare feet. That improved my sleep, actually. Old Dr. Christopher said,
Mine too.
oh, yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah.
And but then there were many, many, many after that. And see, and what I learned from you was that I could communicate to the general audience and not just practitioners. See, I
Right.
wrote it thinking I was writing for practitioners.
Right.
You taught me, the general public. And so like last week, this was the #1 best-selling book for that publisher, for Inner Traditions. In December, it was the #1 release, holistic medicine on Amazon. So, I mean, it went way beyond. And our dear herbalist grandmother of us all, Rosemary Gladstar, she said, Matthew, this is the best book you've written. I was like, what? Like, but so I kind of feel like I rather than adding anything to it, I made a platform that other people can add to, because like I kind of want to go back and listen to the tape of the herbalists and watch their chat. It was just like incredible. Wow, idea after idea after idea. And I kept saying, like, I don't have the answers here. You guys, this is the excitement of life. This is the trail you can start on. Like, I just managed to bring this to a platform where we can visualize it and discuss it. Now go in 100 directions. So that's so I wouldn't add too much. Yeah. I think
Well,
was,
I always like to ask that question, but you did answer it. And one of the things you said is, like, the book becomes a thing, a snapshot, a body of work that's that gets released into the universe, right? Let's just say that.
Yeah.
And then it takes on a life of its own. And then it touches other lives. And it is a living, breathing thing, because when people are reading it, at least my experience from the people I know that have read it, it's a living, breathing thing that enables them to live and breathe more deeply with the awareness and knowledge and now hope. So many people have been told they can't. You'll never get better. You'll never walk again. You'll never do this. And even though the book was meant for practitioners, I'm not a practitioner, and I find it fascinating.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah. So I actually I did think of some things. Just while you're talking, I rearranged, but we don't need to go into those technical.
Yeah, go ahead. Come on, we got 5 minutes.
Well, okay, yeah. So in is restrict the proteins, either long term or Dr. West said vegetarianism. I'm not a vegetarian, and I was like ho. But then Kissinger and Heine, the experts, they said a good protein fast is a good way to start this whole program. Oh, okay, I believe you guys. And then the elimination, you do got to figure out a little, what do I need a little bit, which channel of elimination, because there's a couple of them. And then what I hadn't gone over was the mix part. And it's turning out that the polysaccharides, so the matrix material, the polymers are polysaccharides, actually, which is the mucilage in a plant. So that's like okra. That's that sliminess in a plant. So, and then mushrooms, that's one thing I didn't mention. Okay. Mushrooms have polysaccharides, and they communicate across the cell wall, across the small intestine, to the matrix. And so they're intelligent polymers. They're not just, or polysaccharides. So exercising your matrix with these various substances that communicate with it, particularly mushrooms, and then I would say that the mucilages, the slimy foods, rebuild, but not everybody is going to want a whole lot of slimy foods. And if you're too slimy, if you have SIBO or small intestinal overgrowth, you're going to react so badly. You're going to say that Matt Wood, he doesn't know what he's talking about. But they shouldn't have the slime, the sea slime.
Hey, I grew up with a stepmom from the South. Okra was on the table a couple times a week. I mean, that was just like a thing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what you're talking about to me is so important, because thank you for remembering those. Thank you. Um, I think that whatever you do, whatever Matthew and I are talking about, please, if you're under doctor's care, consult your doctor.
Yeah.
One of the things I learned is when I'm left on my own, it is not good. See, I think in the world, this was a mistake I made and it cost me dearly. I thought 3 drops of 100% pure oregano was better than 1. No, that did not work out for me, because it's a different approach.
Yeah.
It's different. And I think in your book, you're helping us understand the mechanics of it, but also why and how certain things might affect your cells, your tissues, your organs.
Yeah. Yeah. Essential oils, you got to use small doses.
Small, yeah, please. I went into anaphylactic shock. It was like, you do that once and then you realize you do not know much about this pot. But the point is this: there are options. If you've given up hope, take a look at what Matthew's doing. Take a look at the book. Find somebody in your area, if that's possible for you. Many places where I live, but there are places now all over the United States, and by the way, all over the world. And, get educated. And I think, Matthew, what you've done is you've opened up a doorway for us. So thank you for that.
Yes. And you can get educated.
Yeah, that's it for me. Matthew, again, tell people how their folks can find out about you, how they can get your book. And thank you to our friends at Inner Traditions for bringing Matthew back. How do people find out about you?
Matthew Wood, Institute of Herbalism, as you said. And I teach there. We're trying to get together a curriculum for classes. Then I would say all my books are available on Amazon. I should set up my own store by this point, but Amazon doesn't.
Oh, yeah. That's a lot of work. Just saying. Matthew, thank you so much. Last question. What do you want to leave us with? What's your personal message?
Oh, gee. I'd still like to get educated and still expect the unexpected. On the health trail. Like life was put here as a challenge. So, and we don't know the answers. It's like, we've had our mystical experiences, talk to the angels. We still don't know the answers. So it's an open show, and then so get educated, but always be open. Okay.
I love it. Matthew, thank you so much. And I want to leave everybody with, if there's one thing that you've heard from here, right? And by the way, we've got Robbie Holtz coming up next. She's going to talk about Robbie's going to talk about angels and guardian, the whole thing. But I love what you said. If you do nothing else today, shake your booty. Shake your booty. That's it. You got to move something, and have fun chopping wood.
Yep. You too.
I have a pile of it back here. I may do that. All right. Let's take a short break, everybody. We'll be right back.
All clear.